You're not poor because you don't make enough money. You're poor because you don't understand the mathematics of staying poor. And until you grasp that fundamental truth, no raise, no promotion, no lottery ticket is going to save you from a lifetime of financial struggle. I'm going to tell you how to build real wealth on a small salary. Not someday when conditions improve. Not when you finally land that dream job. Starting right now, today, with exactly what you have in your pocket. And I'm going to do it using principles that actually work. Principles that have created more millionaires than any get-rich-quick scheme ever will. These aren't the flashy tactics you see sold by influencers who've never built anything except a following. This is the quiet, unglamorous truth about how ordinary people on ordinary salaries become extraordinarily wealthy. Let me give you some context first. As of 2024, the median household income in the United States is $83,730. That's what half of American families are living on, or less. And here's the reality. According to Federal Reserve data from their 2024 survey, only 24% of those earning under $25,000 could cover 3 months of expenses from savings. The broader picture is concerning, too. About 63% of adults said they would cover a surprise $400 emergency expense using cash or its equivalent, but that still leaves more than 1/3 of Americans who would need to borrow money, sell something, or simply couldn't cover it at all. The system isn't designed to make wealth building easy, but it is possible. Wealth isn't some mystical force reserved for the lucky or the brilliant. It's the predictable result of specific behaviors, repeated consistently over long periods of time. And you can start those behaviors today, regardless of your salary. Here's the first thing you need to understand, and I mean truly internalize this until it becomes part of how you see the world. Wealth building has almost nothing to do with how much you make, and almost everything to do with what you do with what you make. The first $100,000 is a complete nightmare to accumulate. Let me be honest with you about this. It's brutal. It's slow. It requires you to do things that will make you look strange to your friends. You'll walk places other people drive. You'll skip meals other people consider normal. You'll say no to things that seem harmless, that everyone else is saying yes to. And you'll do this for years while watching everyone around you live it up, wondering why you're being so weird. But here's the mathematics that nobody wants to hear. The mathematics that changes everything once you accept it. After you get to that first $100,000, everything transforms. Not because you suddenly become smarter or luckier, but because compounding finally has enough material to work with. At 10% annual returns, something close to the long-term average the stock market has delivered, that $100,000 grows to over $670,000 in 20 years without you adding another dollar. The machine starts running on its own. Building that first 100,000, though, that's the miserable part. Most people never get there because they can't handle being miserable on purpose. They need comfort now. They need to feel like they're winning now. They need to show progress now. Visible progress that their friends and family can see and admire. So they buy things that make them feel successful, and they stay broke forever. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. So pick one, because you're going to experience one or the other. $100,000 sounds impossible on your salary. I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You can barely save $100, let alone $100,000. Fine. Start with 50. Start with 20. Start with 10. The amount doesn't matter yet. What matters is that you reverse the order of how you handle money. Because right now, you're doing it completely backwards. You're paying everyone else first. That's what you're doing wrong. Rent, car payment, credit cards, streaming services, food delivery, coffee runs, random purchases that seemed like good ideas at the time. And then, if there's anything left over at the end of the month, maybe you save it, maybe. That approach is backwards, and it's why you're stuck. Pay yourself first, even if it's $10, even if it feels pointless, even if you think it won't make a difference. Because wealth doesn't start with money. It starts with the habit. Every single time you pay yourself first, you're training your brain to believe that your future matters. And that belief, repeated over months and years, creates the discipline that separates people who build wealth from people who stay stuck forever. Think about it this way. When you owe your landlord money and you don't pay, what happens? Eviction notices, phone calls, consequences you can't ignore. But when you owe your future self money, you let it slide. Like it doesn't matter. Like there's no penalty for skipping it. That's the problem, though. There is a penalty. It just shows up 20 years later when you have nothing saved and no options left. No safety net. No freedom. Just dependence and worry for the rest of your life. Treat yourself like the most important bill you have. Because nobody else is coming to build your wealth for you. Not your employer, not the government, not some lucky break that's going to fall out of the sky. Only you can make that transfer from barely surviving to actually thriving. And it starts with making that payment to yourself non-negotiable. For most people, the target should be around 3 to 6 months of living expenses in an emergency fund. Enough to give you peace of mind when unexpected expenses arrive, because they always do. But not so much cash that it slows down your growth. Once that emergency fund is covered, the rest of your money can start working harder for you in other places where it can actually multiply. Lifestyle creep occurs when increased income leads to increased spending, especially on non-essential items, without a corresponding increase in saving or investing. And it's one of the silent killers of wealth for millions of people. When you get a raise, what do? You upgrade your car, you move to a nicer apartment, you start eating out more, you buy better clothes. You convince yourself you've earned it, that you deserve these things after working so hard. And suddenly, your new higher income disappears just as fast as your old lower income did. You're making more and saving nothing. The correct move, the move that actually builds wealth, is to let your income rise while your expenses stay the same. That's how the gap widens. That's how you create margin in your budget. That's how wealth actually gets built. But it requires you to not care what other people think. It requires you to drive the same car when you could afford better. To live in the same place when you could afford bigger. To resist every urge to show the world that you're moving up the economic ladder. Warren Buffett's longtime partner, Charlie Munger, lived in the same modest house for 70 years. No air conditioning. He watched his wealthy friends build bigger and fancier houses. And you know what he observed? They became less happy, not happier. Meanwhile, he quietly built a fortune that eventually reached $2 billion. Not because he earned more than everyone else, but because he understood something they didn't. Having a basic house really helps you. And having a really fancy house doesn't do you that much good. The man could have afforded any house he wanted, any car, any lifestyle. But he chose to underspend his income his entire life. While his rich friends kept upgrading, taking on bigger mortgages, more expensive maintenance, higher property taxes, he stayed put and let his money compound instead of bleeding it into things that made him less free. You think you need to upgrade. You think you deserve nicer things. You think you've earned the right to treat yourself. And that thinking is exactly why you'll stay broke. Rich people look poor. Poor people try to look rich. Don't fall for the trap. Every dollar you spend trying to look successful is a dollar that can't work for you, can't grow for you, can't buy you freedom later. The neighbor with the luxury car and the designer clothes, they're not winning. They're performing. And that performance costs them their future every single month. Now we need to talk about compounding. Because most people have no idea how powerful this force actually is. They've never given it time to work. Compound interest occurs when interest earned on an investment is reinvested, so that interest begins earning interest itself, creating a snowball effect where growth accelerates over time. The first rule of compounding is simple: never interrupt it unnecessarily. When you pull money out of investments to buy something you want, you're not just spending that money. You're spending all the future growth that money would have created. You're killing the compounding before it has a chance to become meaningful. You're sabotaging your own future for temporary gratification today. Let me give you real numbers so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's say Emily starts saving at age 25, investing $200 per month with an average 7% annual return, which is below the stock market's historical average when you factor in inflation. By 65, she could accumulate over $500,000. Now imagine John starts saving at age 35, investing the same amount with the same return. By 65, his total would be roughly half of Emily's, around $250,000, despite investing the same amount each month. 10 years. That's the only difference. 10 years of starting earlier, and Emily ends up with double the wealth. That's the power of time in the market. That's why patience matters more than intelligence when it comes to building wealth. And this is why the big money is not in the buying or the selling, it's in the waiting. Most people just can't stand to wait. They need action. They need to feel like they're doing something. Look at Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company. If you took out their top 15 decisions, they'd have a pretty average record. It wasn't hyperactivity that made them successful. It was patience. Waiting for the right opportunities, then acting with conviction when they appeared, then holding for decades while everyone else was constantly moving money around. If you didn't get the deferred gratification gene, you've got to work very hard to overcome that limitation. Because without it, you'll chase quick wins your entire life and end up with nothing. You'll be one of those people who's constantly busy with their money, constantly trading, constantly adjusting, and somehow never getting ahead. Because every time you interrupt the compounding, every time you pay fees and taxes from moving things around, you're working against yourself. For most people, the right answer is simple, almost boring in its simplicity. Index funds. Low cost, diversified, boring. You put money in regularly and you leave it alone. You don't try to time the market. You don't try to pick individual stocks. You don't listen to people on social media telling you about the next big thing. Index funds track the performance of major stock market indices, such as the S&P 500. The S&P 500 offered an average long-term return of 9.64% in the period ending on February 1st, 2021. That's nearly 10% per year, on average, over the long term. Through every crash, every recession, every market panic, the index kept grinding higher over time. Why should you try to pick individual stocks when you don't design your own electric motors? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Why would you try to design your own portfolio? Most people should not do anything other than have index funds. It's perfectly rational for somebody who doesn't want to think about investing constantly and has no reason to think they have any advantage as a stock picker. Index funds are boring, though, and that's the problem. They don't make you feel smart. They don't give you stories to tell at parties about the amazing stock you picked that went up 30%. They don't create the dopamine hit of thinking you've discovered something others missed. So most people reject this advice and go chase excitement instead. Then they lose money and wonder what happened. You can start with $20 or $50 a month. It might not seem like a whole lot at the beginning, but the longer you stay invested, the more time your investments have to grow. Many brokers and investment app providers enable customers to purchase fractional shares of index funds, allowing you to start investing and create a diversified portfolio without needing thousands of dollars up front. The entry barrier has never been lower. You can literally start today with whatever you have. If you're carrying credit card debt, we need to address that immediately. According to recent data, average credit card interest rates hover around 18 to 24%, with some cards even higher. You cannot get ahead paying those kinds of rates. It's mathematically impossible. You're trying to build wealth while someone else is extracting wealth from you at a rate that compounds against you every single month. There are only 3 ways a smart person can go broke: liquor, ladies, and leverage. The first 2 are self-explanatory. The third one is debt. You borrow money to buy things you don't need to impress people who don't care, and you lock yourself into years of payments that prevent you from ever building anything real. I'll make an exception for a mortgage on a modest house, and that's it. Everything else, if you can't pay cash, you can't afford it. And before you complain that nobody can live that way anymore, understand this clearly. You're right. Nobody can live that way and also maintain the lifestyle you think you deserve. So pick one. Lifestyle now, or freedom later. Because you don't get both. The thing about debt is that it reverses the power of compounding. Instead of working for you, it works against you. Here's an example of what can happen. Imagine someone took out student loans finishing school with $50,000 at a 7% annual interest rate. If they made payments that didn't fully cover the accumulating interest, that balance could actually grow over time rather than shrink, despite making regular payments. In some cases reported, loans have grown from $50,000 to over $65,000 after 10 years of minimum payments. Time and compound interest working against you, not for you. That's the danger. That's what you're fighting against when you carry high-interest debt. Every month that passes makes it harder to escape. Every month you're falling further behind. So if you have high-interest debt, paying it off becomes priority number 1. Not investing. Not saving beyond a small emergency fund. Destroying that debt so it stops destroying your future. You think you have a money problem, but that's not the real problem. You have a clarity problem. You don't know where your money goes. It just vanishes. $6 here, $14 there, $57 at the store for what was supposed to be one item. Track every dollar for 30 days. I don't care how you do it. App, spreadsheet, notebook, whatever works for you. Just track it. When you see your spending in black and white, it forces accountability. And you stop pretending you're being responsible while ordering delivery 5 times a week. You stop lying to yourself about the coffee habit, the subscription services you forgot about, the convenience purchases that add up to hundreds every month. Awareness is power. And most people don't want awareness because awareness requires them to face uncomfortable truths. They'd rather stay confused and blame their salary. But you can't fix what you don't track. And you can't build wealth if you don't know where the leaks are. Once you start tracking, here's what happens. You realize you're not actually broke. You're just spending money on things that don't matter. Things that don't align with your values or your goals. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. Every stupid purchase becomes obvious. Every waste becomes painful. And that pain is what finally creates change. That discomfort is what pushes you to make different choices. Being frugal isn't about deprivation. It's about making intentional choices that align with your financial goals. Frugal living isn't about being miserable or saying no to everything fun. It's about making more intentional choices that help you save money while focusing on the things that truly matter. Cook at home instead of eating out. That alone can save hundreds every month. Batch cook meals on weekends. Use leftovers creatively. Plan your meals before you shop. Use a list and stick to it. These aren't revolutionary ideas, but they work. They're proven. They're boring. And they free up money that can go toward building your future instead of enriching restaurant owners. Buy used instead of new when it makes sense. Thrift stores, consignment shops, online marketplaces offer incredible deals on clothes, furniture, books, everything you need. The quality is often better than moderately priced new items. You save money and reduce waste at the same time. Find free entertainment. Libraries offer books, movies, classes, all free. Your community probably has free concerts, festivals, farmers markets. Nature is free. Hiking, picnics, stargazing. These create memories that are far more valuable than anything money can buy. You don't need expensive entertainment to have a rich life. Review your subscriptions quarterly. Recurring charges for streaming services, subscriptions, meal kits, or unused gym memberships can quietly drain your bank account. Most people are shocked when they add up all their monthly subscriptions. $20 here, $15 there, $10 for something they forgot they signed up for. It adds up to hundreds every year for services you barely use. Walk instead of drive for short trips. You save on gas, parking, car maintenance. You get exercise, which saves on gym memberships and health costs down the line. Small changes compound just like money does. What separates people who actually build wealth from people who just talk about building wealth is learning. Constant, relentless, never-ending learning. In my whole life, I have known no wise people over a broad subject matter area who didn't read all the time. None. Zero. You'd be amazed how much successful people read. And I'm not talking about scrolling social media or watching entertainment. I'm talking about reading books that expand their understanding of the world, of business, of human psychology, of history. There are answers worth billions of dollars in $30 books. But most people won't read them because reading requires effort and focus. Wisdom acquisition is a moral duty. It's not something you do just to advance in life. You do it because staying ignorant when knowledge is available is a choice. And it's a choice that keeps you poor. I constantly see people rise in life who are not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent. But they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. And that helps enormously, particularly when you have a long run ahead of you. Sell yourself an hour each day. Before you do work for anyone else, spend 1 hour making yourself more valuable. Reading, learning, practicing a skill, studying something that increases what you're worth to the marketplace. Most people won't do this. They'll say they're too tired in the morning. They'll say they don't have time. They'll say they'll start next week, and next week never comes. Meanwhile, the people who actually do this pull further and further ahead. Not because they're special, not because they have some unfair advantage, but because they showed up every single day when everyone else hit snooze. Your earning power is directly tied to your value in the marketplace. So if you want to earn more, become more valuable. Learn skills people will pay for. Master communication. Understand how to solve problems. Get better at your craft. The marketplace rewards competence, not wishes. Not intentions, not potential. Competence. And competence comes from deliberate practice over time. It takes months or years of consistent effort before it starts paying off. And most people quit long before they get there because they want results immediately. They want compound interest without the waiting. They want skills without the practice. They want success without the struggle. You don't need a second full-time job grinding yourself into dust. You need quiet income streams that work in the background while you sleep. Sell a digital product you create once. License stock photos you've taken. Freelance a few hours a week in your area of expertise. Flip items from online marketplaces. Write content for creators. None of this is glamorous. None of it will make you go viral. But $200 a month invested wisely equals $47,000 in 10 years at reasonable returns. The key is sustainability. Loud hustle burns out. People get exhausted trying to work 80 hours a week. Quiet systems compound over time without destroying your health or relationships. You're not trying to replace your income overnight. You're trying to add layers that stack over time until your small salary has backup, has multiple streams, has resilience. Most people reject this because it doesn't sound exciting enough. They want the big win, the overnight success, the viral breakthrough, the one thing that changes everything. And while they're chasing that fantasy, they miss the simple opportunities right in front of them that could actually change their situation. The opportunities that are boring and unglamorous but effective. Set up a second bank account at a completely different bank. No debit card attached to it. No app on your phone. Just a digital vault that you can't easily access. Every time you get paid, automate a transfer. Even if it's $25. That money is now off limits. Out of sight. Out of mind. Still there, growing in 12 months when you check on it. This is how people on small salaries accidentally save $1,500, $5,000, $10,000 over time. They don't rely on willpower. They remove the option to spend. We live in a world of easy access where one tap sends your savings vanishing into online purchases you don't need. You can't out-discipline that kind of temptation. Don't even try. Outsmart it instead. Automate everything you can. Savings transfers, retirement contributions if you have access to them, bill payments, investment deposits, because the less you rely on willpower, the more likely you are to win this game. Discipline is great, but automation is greater, because automation doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired or stressed or distracted. It just executes, day after day, month after month, year after year. While everyone else is trying to stay motivated, trying to remember to transfer money, trying to force themselves to make good choices, your system is building wealth in the background whether you think about it or not. That's the power of removing yourself from the equation. Envy, resentment, revenge, and self-pity are disastrous modes of thought. Self-pity gets pretty close to paranoia, and paranoia is one of the hardest things to reverse. If you let these emotions control you, you'll sabotage every bit of progress you make. You see someone driving a nicer car, and you feel envious. You see someone taking expensive vacations, and you feel resentful. You compare your situation to theirs, and you feel like life is unfair. And all of that poison prevents you from doing what actually needs to be done. Stop worrying about what other people have. Stop comparing your Chapter 3 to someone else's Chapter 20. Stop assuming that what you see on the surface represents reality. Half the people you're envying are drowning in debt. They're financing a lifestyle they can't afford to impress people who don't care about them. You know what the real flex is? Financial peace. Not worrying about a $300 emergency. Not needing to ask permission to take time off. Owning your time instead of renting it to someone else hour by hour. That's freedom. And you don't get there by trying to look successful. You get there by quietly building when no one's watching. Stealth wealth is the art of being rich without making it anyone else's business. No logo clothes. No luxury cars on lease. No social media posts about your success. Just silent, steady accumulation. When no one expects you to have money, you don't feel pressure to spend it to prove anything. The loudest people talking about money online are usually broke. The quiet ones who never mention it, they're the ones with 7 figures compounding in index funds. They walk past you in the grocery store wearing $12 jeans, and you'd never know they're millionaires. And that's exactly the point. This is the most important thing I can tell you about money. You only have to climb this mountain once, not 4 times, not 10 times, once. But that one time requires you to stop sabotaging yourself. It requires you to make a series of small decisions consistently over decades. Pay yourself first. Track your spending. Avoid debt. Don't interrupt compounding. Keep learning. Control lifestyle inflation. Build income streams if you can. Automate everything. None of these individually will make you rich next month. But all of them together, applied consistently for 10 or 20 years, will completely transform your financial life. You'll go from living paycheck to having options. From anxious to calm. From dependent to free. The people who succeed aren't smarter than you. They're not luckier. They just avoided stupidity longer. They didn't get distracted by shiny objects. They didn't give up when progress felt slow. They didn't compare themselves to people on social media living fake lives funded by debt. They just kept doing the boring things that work until those boring things created extraordinary results. You don't need a six-figure salary to build wealth. You need a six-figure strategy. And that strategy starts with deciding that your future matters more than your comfort today. It continues with small, disciplined actions repeated so many times they become automatic. And it ends with freedom most people never experience because they were too impatient to build it. The choice is yours. You can keep doing what you've been doing and hope something changes. Or you can accept that nothing changes until you change. Your salary isn't the problem. Your behavior is. And behavior can be fixed starting right now. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for more money. Stop waiting for conditions to improve. Start with what you have where you are today. Pay yourself $50. Track your spending for 1 week. Cut one unnecessary subscription. Read one book about money. Automate one transfer. Small steps. Boring steps. Unglamorous steps. But steps that actually move you forward instead of keeping you stuck in the same place complaining about your circumstances. You know what separates the people who build wealth from the people who don't? The people who build wealth did the work when they didn't feel like it. They saved when they wanted to spend. They learned when they wanted to relax. They delayed gratification when everyone around them was indulging. And 20 years later, they had freedom while everyone else was still trapped in the same financial prison, wondering why life never got easier. That's the deal. Discipline now, or regret later. Discomfort now, or desperation later. Patience now, or poverty later. Pick one, because you're going to experience pain either way. The only question is whether it's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Most people choose regret because discipline hurts today and regret hurts tomorrow. But here's what they don't understand. The pain of discipline fades. You get used to it. It becomes normal, even comfortable after a while. But the pain of regret grows heavier every single year. At 65, looking back at a lifetime of wasted money and missed opportunities, the weight of that regret is crushing. Absolutely crushing. Don't let that be you. Make the hard choice now while you still have time to build something. Every year you wait is a year of compound growth you'll never get back. It's another year closer to retirement with nothing saved. It's another year of paying interest instead of earning it. Building wealth on a small salary isn't easy. It requires sacrifice, discipline, patience, and a willingness to look strange to people who don't understand what you're building. But it's possible. It's been done millions of times by millions of people who weren't special, weren't lucky, weren't gifted with advantages you don't have. They just made better choices consistently over long periods of time. And you can too. Starting today. Starting right now. With exactly what you have. Because wealth isn't about where you start. It's about where you're willing to go and what you're willing to do to get there. If you found value in this message, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And more importantly, take a moment to reflect on where you are financially and where you want to be. Then make one small change today that moves you in that direction. One small change. That's all it takes to start. Because the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And the journey to financial freedom begins with a single decision to stop making excuses and start making progress. Make that decision today. Your future self will thank you.